You are listening to the New Jersey Business Podcast with your friend, host, all-around good guy, Paul Valverde. Now, on to the show.
Jodi, thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome to the New Jersey Business Podcast. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Paul, thank you so much for having me on. My name is Jodi Grinwald, and I am a social entrepreneur. I wear many, many hats. I am the change agent, founder of Today is the Day, the founder of the Today is the Day Changemakers podcast and International Changemakers Forum. And lastly, I am the CEO and co-founder of the Zzak Applaud Our Kids Foundation.
Wow, that is amazing. There's a lot of stuff that you do, and I'm sure that requires for you to be highly organized. And obviously, you're really good at all this stuff. I got to tell you, I listened to a few episodes of your podcast, and I enjoy them very much. I love the guests that you have coming into your podcast. I love what you're doing. So, Jodi, where would you like to start?
Let's see. I think we'll start with the Applaud Our Kids Foundation first, because that's where I started. I've been a nonprofit a really long time, since 2005. My father was very, very ill at one point, and his biggest regret was not being able to take lessons when he was a kid because he couldn't afford to as an opera singer. And so my sister and I decided to start the foundation in honor of him, because of his biggest regret on his deathbed being about not being able to take the stage and really connect creatively. We wanted to provide children 100% funding in either dance, acting, instrumental music, or vocal instruction for up to 15 years. So a child is connected to a studio in their community after school, just like their friends who can afford. We fund them. We find the right places for them to go. We do the background checks. And we also send teachers into existing programs like the Salvation Army or Boys and Girls Clubs, and we pay for the teachers to go in there as well.
Wow, that is amazing. I got to tell you, you mentioned the Salvation Army. I actually have a connection with the Salvation Army. And I love the nonprofit world. People who are involved in nonprofits are all about helping out, are all about giving. And those are my type of people. I love the fact that you and your sister started this foundation in commemoration of your father. And so can you tell me a little bit more about how is it that you guys, I don't know, take candidates or applicants? How is it you guys raise funds for this? I don't know. Where would you like to start? But I'd love to hear more about it.
Absolutely. So it's word of mouth, although we are like Boys and Girls Clubs and Big Brothers Big Sisters will let their students know that we are out there and we will support them. We actually started by working with the Big Brothers Big Sisters so that they would let their kids know that come through their program that this exists. So we fundraise typical, like everyone else does, grants, sponsorships, individual donors, those who want to honor someone when they pass, they've donated to us. And the interesting part for us is $600 or $1,200 means a huge amount for us, because at $600, we can put a child in for dance for the entire school year. And for a $1,200 donation, a child for vocal lessons or instrumental lessons. So a dollar really makes a difference. A lot of people thought, oh, you're starting an organization, your father's name, how cute, how sweet. I felt like I was CEO of a lemonade stand when it first started. Except for because I used to work for what I call the big box organizations, American Heart, American Lung. I was vice president of development or executive director. But people didn't give me the same respect, even though we started the organization ourselves. There was no projections or crystal ball as to what was going to happen. I found someone, to be honest with you, Paul, that believed in what we were doing. I went to someone who I knew was in this field. And I said, if we start this organization, he was a funder, would this be something that would be of interest to you? And he said, yes. Now he could have said no. It doesn't mean I would have said, forget it. But it's very important to find at least one person to believe in what your venture is. So that way you have somebody in your corner who's cheering for you. So I'd bring my pad and my pen, and he would tell me exactly who I needed to meet and where I needed to go and what I needed to do. I would check all those boxes when we first started, and then I'd go back and get more information from him, and he would introduce me to more people. Now we're working with Rowan Community School of Music at Rowan College and the Count Basie Center for the Arts. So we are connected to a lot of big studios that are providing the lessons. We provide the funding, and then we bring them all together to perform at the end of the school year in front of our donors in the community.
That is wonderful. I have a question for you. So did this person play the role of a mentor for you in this respect?
Absolutely. And I've had lots of them throughout my life. I'm totally a big believer in mentorship, no matter how old you are. Yes, he absolutely did. He gave us $1,000 the first time out. Now it's way, way over that. And
Yeah.
the thing about it is, like I said, that piece, you don't necessarily always find funders who are going to give you a list of people you should go talk to learn more. But he did. He did because he saw that there was a need, and he also saw that it was coming from a place that was a good place. And he's the type that if he didn't believe we could get it done, he would have told me not going to work. So it was nice,
Yep.
not related to me. Here I was going to him. He didn't even really know me from a hole in the wall. So it was an honest conversation.
Jodi, I want us to open a parenthesis here, right? And let's talk a little bit more about mentorship. I think that is so essential. And we have business owners, entrepreneurs who are listening to us. And oftentimes that could be very lonely. That could lead to a feeling of being alone because not everybody connects with you and understands perhaps your vision, where you're feeling. And perhaps there's hesitance towards looking toward in looking towards a mentor or finding a mentor. So will you please talk a little bit more about the importance of a mentor in one's life and career?
Absolutely. I think that a lot of people have these mentors that they don't tell them that they're their mentor. You just look up to them. Some of them we don't even meet, right? Some of them you're listening to on podcasts or you're listening to on YouTube channels. They mentor you, but they don't even know they're mentoring you. And I've had that too. I think the thing about it is, though, I like now, I think I was like 40 when I first said to the first person, would you mentor me? And he was like, what does that mean? He's like, and then you know what he did the first meeting? He came to the meeting with a bunch of books and said, here, read them. I think the reason a lot of especially leaders don't want to showcase that they want a mentor because they're afraid that that's going to mean there's a weakness and that they don't know how to do something. And that to me, that is so not true. Mentorship and being able to say that you have vulnerability and you want somebody to bounce things off of and to help guide you. I think it's so important. Look to the person who you're like, wow, I just love what they're doing. I love everything about what they're saying. And go and I have to say, I don't think I've ever had anybody who I've gone to and said, can you share something with me? And then they said, no, I want nothing to do with it. That's not what happens. I mean, and if they do, you don't want them in your life. You don't want them on your path. But asking for help, asking for advice or assistance is just so important because you don't want to feel alone. And also sometimes we get paralyzed if we don't have a mentor, right? Because we have an idea and a thought, but we don't know how to bring it to that next level. So then we just get stuck in our tracks and we move away from it. And there goes the regret of not going forward with it. Having a mentor can help you really guide you and help. You're like clay to them, right? They can mold you and they can tell you, hey, this is how, if you go this route, it's going to be better. So mentorship, I can't talk enough about it.
Yeah, definitely. You're right. Having a teachable heart is so important in order to grow as a person, to grow as an entrepreneur, to grow as a business owner, even to grow as a dad, to grow as a mom. It's so essential to have a teachable heart, have someone to talk to and someone to learn from. I mentioned I had a connection with the Salvation Army. I'll quickly share that
Yes.
in my early 20s, I had the privilege, I want to say the blessing, to have as a mentor a retired national commander for the Salvation Army. And I mean, the wealth of experience and the just the circles in which he moved and the people that he met, and it was just exchanging emails was a learning experience for me. Like, oh, that's how you write an email. Like if I met with him after the meeting, he would email me saying, "Hey, Paul, it was great seeing you, and I just wanted to kind of go over some of the things we discussed." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. So you do that after you meet with someone, you make sure that you're in the same page by doing like following up that way." Wow, that's great. Just simple things like that were huge, and obviously other bigger and deeper things that we got into. But yes, definitely thank you for mentioning the fact that you at one point or in different points in your life had mentors. I know our audience will benefit a lot from this. So I'll close the parentheses and we're gonna and I want to ask you something. So if people are listening to this, if people maybe I know there may be people who may have a heart towards helping others, particularly providing children with the opportunity to be involved in whether in different types of arts. How would they be able to get involved or contribute? How can they get in touch with you? How can they send a donation? What would be the best point of contact?
Best point of contact is our website. We have a great website, ApplaudOurKids.org. That's the best way. My phone number's on there, an email address, and they can always reach out. We get donations of instruments, sometimes at our doorstep, so that's what's so great because we need instruments. We provide the children with everything. They need a guitar, if they need drums, they get it from us, dance shoes, everything, so that they're successful in their lessons.
Well, we'll be sure to list the website in the show descriptions. So, folks, if you want to get in touch, make sure you do that. And if you want to help, it's just such a beautiful thing to be able to contribute. There's such a huge blessing in giving. So, yeah, definitely do that. Jodi, tell me more. I'm so excited to hear more about what you do and the other endeavors you're in. Come on.
So yeah, so I wasn't busy enough, right, with being the co-founder of Applaud Our Kids, that in December 2020, I decided after 6 years of having the thought of wanting to have a podcast, thinking I was one of those people who's going to listen, who's going to watch. Why would anybody even connect? And so it was that we were in a bad place back then. The pandemic was really bad. It was December. I mean, it was October. I apologize. And so I said, you know what? It's time. I don't know. I swear, Paul, I was sitting on the couch when it just all of a sudden hit me. It was time to do this. But I didn't have a name. I didn't know how to stream. I had no idea how to make a YouTube channel. It was everything I didn't know how to do. Just like starting a nonprofit is very different than working for one. So I said, okay, found the name Changemakers. My goal was always to talk to the people who are making a difference in the world. And it's the everyday change maker, or it's the CEO, TEDx speaker, CNN hero.
Yeah.
There's so much to share across borders and boundaries, not just in New Jersey, not just in one town, all around the world. And I'm like, I learned so much when I listen to other people. And if I can connect with one person to make them feel like life is going to be okay, and you can reach for your dreams, and you can become an entrepreneur, even though you may not know how right now, it's one step at a time, small or large, to get yourself closer to the goal. So I decided to start the podcast and interview my first big boss who hired me a nonprofit. And then one led to another, led to another. Honestly, I don't know how I wound up interviewing the TV producer for the show NCIS and former FBI agent, and just all of these incredible humans who wanted to share their story, not because it was ego, because they were hoping on the other side somebody would be listening that would then it would help them ultimately. So then after 65 episodes, I think we've been downloaded in more than 320 cities around the world, 30 countries. And so it's been just incredible. But then I said, okay, what happens if people don't listen to a podcast, or they don't listen to a YouTube channel? All these great stories and nuggets and gems of information are gone. So I decided it was time to start an international changemakers forum where everybody could come together. Yes, it's Zoom, but there's people from Dubai and the Netherlands and New Zealand. How else would they come together? They're not going to. So plus, the other piece too, Paul, to mention, and this is important, is that right now, it's been called the Great Resignation, right? There's over 930,000 people who resigned in 2021. And I'm looking at my notes at 2021. So between January 2021 and October 2021, there were 931,000 people who resigned from their jobs. They need support. Those people need support. So here is a movement that I'm creating to help support them through stories and connection. There'll be an international networking at the event. It's March 24th. But what's great about it is I'm creating a movement. It's about helping each other, lowering our judgment, and allowing ourselves to be more vulnerable in business and as well in life. And when you do that, the connections you create in business go to a next level. They're natural. I've seen my change makers working together, and that wasn't even the point of why I started it. Now they're buying books from each other, hundreds of books from each other. Somebody's an author, somebody has a nonprofit and bought 150 books from one of my change makers in Greece. So, long story, but it's an entire movement of incredible humans who just want to make a difference.
I think part of it is that people who identify with your mission, with your vision, and with your message have oftentimes alike core values. And when you find that type of community, when you start feeling like you belong to a group where you have similar values, it feels so great. And it's so natural to make those type of connections, whether it is in business or at a personal level, whether it is buying books or contributing. People could call it networking. For other people, it's just making friends and just making connections, meeting people. I think that's so wonderful. If people want to learn more about this or get in touch with this, where should they go?
Today is the day. Live it, LIVEIT.com. I have a mantra I say at the end of every podcast. Today's the day. You can't go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. So that's exactly my mantra for the way I see life. And we can't go backwards. We can only go forwards or live in the moment, which is so important. And so that's what I'm trying to teach everybody through this podcast, as well as through this Changemakers movement.
Wonderful. I'm loving it. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Jodi, how do you do to stay on top of all these things? I mean, it's a lot. You have the podcast going on, coordinating guests, and I'm sure production, the forum, the foundation. How do you do it?
Honestly, I wish I had like this magic way to tell everybody this is how you juggle like 10 balls in the air. And it's not. It's there's no science. I wish there was. I am very much ADHD. So I'm all over the place. I don't have a rhythm or a rhyme. I think where I go, where my passion is in that day, and I wear multiple hats in an hour and in 15 minutes. You should see it's very funny. If anybody followed me around, they get a really good laugh. I'm talking about Applaud Our Kids. Hang up the phone. I'm talking about Today's the Day Changemakers. Hang up the phone. I'm talking about the forum. So it really all, but the one thing I will say, although it sounds very much separated, all of it is about connection. My entire platform, because I'm also a coach, is everything to me. It goes down to human connection. We all need that. We, as humans, we strive for that, whether it's to ourselves or to others. So I connect children with the performing arts and in a creative outlet, and I connect individuals so that they can feel empowered and be able to learn from each other. And those are the things,
Yes.
I feel like are everything. And I love to go out and speak to people. I miss speaking live. I've been doing a little bit of that. I love to be able to feel the room and talk to people. But I don't have a rhyme or reason, Paul. I wish I did. But what I will tell you is prioritizing. I think that's what everybody knows. Making lists, they work as long as you don't lose them like me. Or I have big Post-its I put on the wall. If you looked up to the left of me, you would see a huge Post-it with all of my things that I need to work on today. But that's you have to prioritize. That's if you have 20 balls in the air, that's the most important thing.
I like to go back and touch on something that you mentioned a
Sure.
little bit ago. And it was, you said, when you were going to start the podcast, you thought about it. You did have some hesitations, like, like would people listen to it? Would people be into it, etc. But still, you overcame those hesitations, which I think is huge. Like that right there is something we can talk about. And also is that even though there were hurdles, right? Like, I don't know how to set this up. I don't know how to edit this, or I don't know how to do that. You did it anyway. And I think that's so important because oftentimes we get so caught up in the negative mindset that I want to do this, but I have this problem, so I can't do it. As opposed to thinking more like, okay, I want to do this. I have this problem. What do I need to do to overcome or get around that problem and still accomplish what I was set out to accomplish? Can you talk a little bit about that, the process that you went through, overcoming those hurdles, overcoming those negative thoughts or discouraging thoughts that might have crossed your mind?
Again, I did something very similar as I did with the foundation. I started to talk to people and said to them, "This is my idea. This is my thought. Would you listen to a podcast like this? Would this be something that would be of interest? What kind of topics do you want to hear?" And I started sending emails out to people that I was somewhat close with, and then some people that I wasn't as close with. So I really wanted to get the mix of both to see if it was even something that they would listen to. But the other thing is that I thought about the outcome on the other side. And it was the same thing with the Applaud Our Kids Foundation. If I don't do it, if I don't move forward with it, what's going to be missing for myself, as well as potentially for that one person? And I know it sounds silly to just say one person, but for that one person who listens to one of my guests and says, yes, I have imposter syndrome too, and I can get through it. And I belong to do these things, whether or not somebody tells me yes or no. And it was funny, that was kind of a going theme last year. A lot of these very high profile people talked about imposter syndrome. And that was me. I was like, who's going to listen? Why me? Who's going to listen to me?
Yeah.
It was the same thing, to be honest with you too, Paul, with this Changemakers forum, right? I put together, we have Ignite Your Spark breakout sessions. I was able to get this incredible keynote speaker. But at the end of the day, when I was putting it all together, I was thinking, what if nobody shows up? Everything's going to fall on me because this was my idea. And yeah, it's scary. It's scary, but I think we get so caught up in the judgment. We are not born with judgment. It's something, and we're not born worrying about judgment. It's a learned behavior. And that's the problem is trying to pull back and unlearn how to judge, as well as unlearn about caring about who judges you. The hardest part in business and in life, because it's the same. We feel sometimes we don't make moves when we're CEOs of big companies or small companies because we're afraid how it'll be viewed. So, I hope that answers your question. But the truth is, again, no magic bullet. It truly is all about talking to other people, having them cheer for you when you can. And there were naysayers, but did they naysay enough for me to say, well, what about that one person who may really need the message? They didn't.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate you sharing that. I'm sure I needed to hear that. And I'm sure there's someone in our audience who needed to hear that as well. It is so important. It is so important to be able to overcome those hurdles. And also, the fact that you took action, right? It's so easy to go from to allow planning to become procrastination. And you could be so caught up and like, okay, say you want to start a podcast, like I gotta have the right name, I gotta have the right intro, I gotta have the right logo. And when I have everything figured out, then I'll do my first episode. And when you do that, then sometimes it never happens, right? Sometimes you just got to do it. And hey, listen, if you change the name, then you change the name. And if you modify this, then you modify that. So for you, you in our audience right now who is listening or watching, if there is something that you want to start, that you want to do, that you're planning on doing, take action. Just do call it your version 1.0, call it your first draft, call it your crappy version 1.0, and go for it, and then improve it and build on it and make it better. Does that sound about right, Jodi?
Oh, it sounds perfect, because if I look at my first interview and the way I interview now, I'm like, oh my gosh, no. But you improve, and it's 100% right. And you can call Paul, you can call me. We're always, that's the thing is finding those people who won't judge you, who are open to sharing and open to telling you, how to get it done, or not how, but giving you steps that you can take. And coaching, having a coach is always good. But I will say that you're right on target about the fact that you can get paralyzed very easily by saying, I don't know how. That's why most times people don't do certain things they want to do.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, 100%. Jodi, our time is coming to a close. I'm sure our audience is going to want to have you back again, and I hope you're open to that. I certainly enjoy our time together. I want to thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Paul. I'm so grateful.
All righty, folks, there you have it. Have a good one.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the show, go to NewJerseyBusinessPodcast.com. That's NewJerseyBusinessPodcast.com. We can't wait to hear from you and your business. You can also visit our website to learn about sponsorship opportunities and how to qualify for a complimentary gift. Thanks again for listening to the New Jersey Business Podcast.